All right, so we'll get started with the next presentation here. Membership recruitment and retention. We invited Bobby Ray from Curling Canada. Bobby is the manager of club development and member services at Curling Canada. And I know some people will think, well, Canada's situation is different than here in the United States, but they do have different situations, as I'm sure Bobby will elaborate on. But we share many of the same challenges, and I think what I really like whenever I talk to Bobby is he's got a lot of interesting, creative, innovative ideas for how to refashion your curling club or rethink it. And with that, Bobby, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks so much for that introduction and for inviting me to be part of your event. It's a real honor. Again, my name is Bobby. I'm the manager of club development and member services at Curling Canada. I suppose an interesting fact that I always share about myself in a situation like this is that I've only ever worked in the sport of curling. So I came to the sport as a player when I was 11 years old and got a job when I was 15 at my local curling club in the pro shop, became a curling club manager when I was 19 and did that for 10 years before taking on a role as the executive director of the Northern Ontario Curling Association. So I come from North Bay, Ontario. It's about 3.5 hours north of Toronto. It's just inside the jurisdiction for the Great Curling Province of Northern Ontario. But today I'm actually sitting in Dawson Creek, British Columbia. We're meeting with one of our member clubs and we're doing a strategic planning weekend with them. So that started last night and continues on today and tomorrow. It's been a lot of fun. The topic that I want to speak to the group today about is membership recruitment and retention. And of course, anyone that's in this area knows we could probably spend a whole weekend just speaking about strategies in this respect. But today I want to focus on 3 of my favorite. The first one's going to be about leaning into social trends to give people what they really want. The second is going to be describing what a customer journey is, and as a group, potentially creating a customer journey map. And the last one will be optimizing our value proposition for today's prospective new curler. So let's get into it. Glad to be speaking to a new audience today because I think the folks in Canada are getting tired of me recycling the same message. I keep saying that the popularity of curling is increasing. There's more curling on television, more people are watching it on television. Since the Olympics, we've had more exposure and attention come to the sport. Our data suggests that over 2 million people curled at least one time in Canada last year, which is a number greater than that figure that was collected in the year previous to the pandemic. So there's an interest in curling, but the way that we deliver curling is falling short of the next generation's expectations. And I always equate it to the story of Blockbuster Video. Blockbuster Video went out of business, not because watching movies became unpopular, but because the way they delivered movies to their consumer became unpopular. So they failed to keep up to the pace of societal trends, to innovate, and they allowed for companies like Netflix to come in and deliver movies that people still watch just in a new way. And that's how I want to think about reimagining the way that we deliver curling. Okay, so at a very macro level, there are really only 2 things we need to do if we're going to attract and retain curlers in the future. The first one is we need to offer them what they want. So this requires us to all to play a little bit the part of a social scientist. If you want youth, for example, the next time you catch yourself saying kids these days, I want you to stop, write down whatever's bugging you about kids these days, and then give that to them at your curling club. So we need to ask this question: is are we desirable? Are we giving something that people want? And then only in addition to that, how easy are we making it for people to take action on the offers that we're offering? Okay, so are we accessible? You might want to go to the moon, as you can see in that photo there, but it's not very easy to do. And if we can do both of these things, you should see on the screen now, at the intersection of desirability and accessibility, there's a great deal of prospective new curlers that we can bring to our sport. I want to define accessibility a little bit because I think when most hear that word, the first thing they think about is a physical accessibility. Can people get into the building? Can people get onto the ice? and it's so important, but there are other ones I want to touch on as well. So that first one is physical. Can someone in a wheelchair access the sport of curling? Can someone who uses a walker or a cane get into the building? Can someone who has a baby who they're carrying in a stroller get into the facility? So there's a lot of different physical accessibility issues that we have to be concerned about. But there's other forms of accessibility. Is the sport financially accessible? And we always straight go to price. Like, is the price something that is a barrier to entry? And it may or may not be, but there are other things to consider as well, such as the method of payment that we're accepting. I'm not sure about in your circumstances, but so many of our clubs have been around for decades and centuries in some cases, and they're still asking people to show up to the front door with a check to pay for their curling experience. And so it's the method that is acting as a barrier in that circumstance. So accepting online payments and such. And then the timing. So it might it might be entirely reasonable to charge $500, $1,000 for a year of curling, but it might be unreasonable to ask for that in one shot. So you have a registration fare and you want someone to throw down $1,000, it's a big ask. So are other ways where you can have multiple seasons that people pay for over the course of the curling year? Or do you have a payment plan where you can pay on a monthly basis, like a fitness center, things of that nature? Are we accessible when it comes to ability level? We did some research not quite 2 years ago with asking questions of people that don't curl, trying to understand the barriers that they perceived in curling. One of them was they felt that having to join as an individual was a barrier. And another one is that, oh, sorry, I'm just getting some feedback there.
Resolving.
Okay. So on the ability level, one of the barriers we hear is that people have to join, or joining as an individual is not something that they think they can do. They feel like they need to bring a team to the club to join the league. But also they have a discomfort with their current ability to walk into the sport, to be thrown onto a team that's been playing for a number of years, into a program that's already started, and to feel comfortable about contributing their skills that are not quite up to par with the rest. So do we offer instruction like other sports do? Do we have skill appropriate places they can go to build their skills before perhaps they join the other members of the club in a regular league? So do you have a beginners league, and do you call it that so it's very, very apparent? And the other one would be availability. This is one that I love talking about because we've been stuck in this offer where we do, you curl every Tuesday night for 2 hours for 6 months, and there's no really budging from that. But our clubs are getting creative over the last handful of years, and so you see them challenging the dates that they offer curling on, the times, where it's always traditionally been in these time blocks that perhaps have changed. The duration, like why do we have to curl for 2.5 hours, be at the club for 4 hours once you factored in travel and socialization and such? It could be shorter. The frequency, why is it every week? Why could it not be bi-weekly or once a month or when I feel like it? The flexibility to drop in to play for a part of the season versus the entire 6 months, things like this. And overall, it just seems that society has commitment issues. So we need to consider that and think about how we can overcome commitment issues as a barrier to entering the sport. We're still talking about trends. There are likely hundreds of trends you can talk about, but I'm going to put the top 10 personal to me on the board to talk about today. And the first one I want to talk about is inclusivity. I hate to call it a trend. I don't mean like it's here today, gone tomorrow. This is a permanent shift in behavior that's very positive. Our clubs are becoming more inclusive because our country is becoming more multicultural, and it's a great thing. This is something that I've learned a lot about over the past year myself, and I'm learning that we can confuse the word inclusive with friendly, because I tell clubs we need to be more inclusive, and they say, we are inclusive. Like you can come through the door, we will greet you, we'll show you to the ice, everyone will be smiling at you and so on. And I totally believe that's true. I'm not sure that there's a more friendly place with more friendly people than a curling club. But it's the difference between saying, hey, come on in, you're welcome to do what we do here, and hey, come on in, we've created something for you. So inclusivity just goes a step further, where we actually factored into the way we design programs, to the way we promote curling in the greater community to the way we design our systems and procedures internally. It's the difference between the golden rule and the platinum rule. Likely your parents taught you the golden rule when you were growing up. It's treat others the way that you'd expect for them to treat you. The platinum rule I'm learning is all about inclusivity. It's treat others the way that they would like to be treated. The second one is to be more agnostic. So this is maybe a very Canadian thing where it's like Monday night men's league, Tuesday night women's league, Wednesday night mixed league, Thursday night seniors league, and there's a category for everyone. But with how busy people are and how much we're competing for them to do other things in their life, it's very challenging to say that Monday night is men's night. And if that doesn't work for you, you're SOL. So the future of curling, we believe, is more open leagues that fit your schedule. We want someone to walk into a curling club and say, hey, I just watched curling on TV. I'd love to play. And our response will be, do you want to play in our Monday league, our Tuesday league, our Wednesday league, our Thursday league? And all of them are agnostic. And we create systems in our leagues that divide people by their ability, but not really by anything else. That goes well into the next one, which is being more developmental. So curling is a difficult sport. It can be frustrating to go out your first time. Perhaps some of you, that's not too long ago. You rifle a bunch of rocks through the house, or you can't make the hog line. You've bumped your knee on the ice. You feel new muscles the next morning. It's difficult. It's not unlike golf or tennis, but golf and tennis offer instruction. They have tennis professionals, they have golf professionals to teach you the skills you need to get better, faster, and enjoy the sport. And we think that curling needs to go in a similar direction. Okay. The next is to be more digestible. So as I was just saying, the popularity of curling is not in decline, but the popularity of the 3-hour excursion every week for 6 months is in decline. Again, why can't curling be 6 ends, 60 minutes, 6 weeks, once a month for 6 months? Why is it a requirement that we curl on a regularly recurring schedule? And very similarly, another trend we're seeing is offering flexibility. I like to talk about intakes. Canadian curling clubs are famous for having on intake, usually in the middle of October, the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, curling starts. And if you miss the open house, come back and see us again next season. But we need to have more intakes. And actually, at the club where I used to work, we permanently shifted to 3 distinct curling seasons. So we do a fall season, a winter season, and a spring season. And it's a hard stop. We operate for 7 weeks. We stop, everyone re-registers, gives people the option to go into different leagues or new leagues or be on a different team to get away from that person on their team that's been frustrating them. It's good for snowbirds. It's good for new people who don't know that they like curling yet. They need time to see that, and maybe they won't commit 6 months to seeing if that's true. We need the flexibility for people to go curling. You can go do a lot of things in this world. You can go for a walk, you can go for a beer, you can go to the outdoor hockey rink, you can go to the driving range, but it's very difficult to go curling. I love asking this question of curling organizers, how do we get to a place where people can, on the whim, go curling? In some of my work, we'll do work with curling clubs. A lot of them are supported by their municipal government, and so we'll often be consulting what's called a master recreation plan. So if you're a curling club in a community that has a partnership with your municipality, you should have a master recreation plan. And in there, it'll prioritize the sort of investments they'll make in recreation. And so as a trend, what we're seeing is communities are investing in recreational spaces that are flexible. So they're multi-purpose. You can use them for one sport, but also another. And they're investing in recreation that can be consumed very flexibly as well. So by any number of people on their own schedule. A good example of that might be Frisbee golf. Like Frisbee golf shows up at the top of a lot of recreation plans because it's outdoors, it doesn't require a lot of overhead, but there's this flexibility to go play Frisbee golf with 5 of your friends or by yourself, to go in the morning, the afternoon, the evening, to do it for 10 minutes or to go for 3 hours, like you can choose. And the last one on the on the subject of flexibility is since the pandemic, we're seeing a great trend in how people interface with their work lives. And I'm one example. I work from home. I work on my own schedule. If I decide not to work one morning, it means I need to work one evening, or it means I need to go into work on the weekend. But there's some flexibility there. So where someone like myself, I have children that are 7 and 5 years old, we would typically lose them from the sport for a period while they were growing their careers and raising their children. This whole new world of working from home and having some flexibility has opened up the opportunity for different time slots for curling. So I personally curled the last 2 years, Mondays at noon in a doubles league. And I would say that a majority of the people that are participating there, when we're done, our 8 ends, hour and a half of doubles curling, they're going back to work. Like they're taking this on a lunch break, which is really cool. This is not a new trend, but it's still worth talking about, that we need to continue to get better and better and better at presenting ourselves in digital spaces, using social media to our benefit, advertising online, collecting fees for registration or for curling experiences online. Yes, it costs 2.9% and 30 cents for someone to stripe their Visa card, but it's the cost of business in today's world. A lot of people will see curling on TV to speak to a friend who's in a program. They'll have a moment of inspiration where they want to try curling themselves. And they're going to rush to Google to find your website to see that there's this opportunity for them to try curling. And if they can't check out online, then you've lost that 97.1% of a potential transaction. So it just needs to be there. Number 7 is to be remarkable. This is a favorite word of Seth Godin. Some of you might be familiar with his work. He's an author, speaker about marketing and business. And Seth defines being remarkable as something worth talking about, worth noticing, exceptional, new, interesting, and something that makes you go, wow. The emerging generation leads a more minimalist lifestyle. So they value experience over material possessions, and they value quality over quantity. The primary currency of the emerging generation is now time, not money. And they're looking for a remarkable experience to invest their time and money in. Okay, we're seeing our sport even at the community grassroots level becoming more professional. I would again kind of sort of compare it to other sports like tennis and golf that have had a culture of this for a long time. They pay people to manage clubs, they pay people to deliver instruction and to create exceptional experiences for the people that participate. And I think curling in the future will too. And in fact, we're seeing some of our most successful clubs doing this, hiring more staff, offering them more training to make sure that they're offering great experiences that people will pay for, because of the previous point. People will pay with their money. They don't want to pay with their time. The next one is endogenous. Endogenous means to have an internal cause or origin. Again, I'm not sure if this one applies in your circumstance, but it does in Canada. Our original model when we opened our clubs is that we would have a number of different clubs within clubs. You have the men's club, the seniors club, the women's club, the mixed club. Some call them sections. They have their own executives. They have their own annual general meetings. There's a lot there. But the trend has been to break down all that bureaucracy and to have a one club model, and for the club to control its own programming and its own brand. I think that's really important, because when we outsource curling to rental groups or clubs within clubs, we risk not being able to develop our product. These individuals are not attending assemblies like this to understand the business of curling and study where it's going. The club manager is, or the board of the club overall. And then you have this inconsistent brand. So when you think about brand, one of the definitions of brand is it's what people say about you out in the community, behind your back, that kind of thing. Hopefully it's positive, but when we outsource so much of our curling experiences to multiple different groups, we risk fracturing that brand, because you can go into the club on a Monday night and have a really great experience, but you can go there on Tuesday night and it's totally different. So if we can have control over this, we can invest in our brand and have more people come to the sport. And the last one we're talking about today is just fun. The modern curling business operator ought not measure their success by the number of banners hanging from the rafters, but by the number of people that are playing air guitar on their broom. I'm not sure how many clubs are playing music in the ice while curling happens now. It's a really great trend that's happening in Canada. My club, almost all of our leagues, maybe all of our leagues, we play music at different volumes perhaps, but it's so much more fun to go out there and listen to music and have a social experience while we're playing our game. Okay. That was the first of 3 strategies we're going to talk about. The next one is customer journey. So I'll tell you a quick story. A guy walks into a bar. The bar is busy, it's noisy, there's not really anywhere to sit, but he finds somewhere to stand at the corner of the bar. He's looking up and around the room, and he notices that there's a woman staring back in his direction. They lock eyes, there's this instant connection. And the woman walks across the room to meet the guy and says, I wouldn't have been able to forgive myself if I didn't come over here and say hello to you. And the guy says, I'm so glad you did. Then he drops down to one knee and says, will you marry me? While the look of panic overcomes the woman's face and she scurries away. Just then, the guy's wingman jumps in and says, what are you doing? Did you just ask that girl to marry you? Haven't you ever heard of, can I buy you a drink? This might seem like a silly story. You're wondering where I'm going with it. It just reminds me of an experience I had in the first year that I managed a club. My office was at the top of the stairs. It was immediately in the front door. And it's my first curling season. This guy busts through the front door and he's so excited that he just saw curling on TV. Okay, he noticed curling from across the room and he came over to find out more information. He comes into the office, tells me the story. I reach over to this big stack of paper and I hand him a membership form. Well, the look of panic overcomes his face and he scurries away, and I haven't seen him since. Membership in this situation is like marriage. And way too often we're jumping to this question of, hey, you need to be a member, you need to curl every Tuesday night from 6:30 to 8:30 for the next 6 months before doing any of the lead up work that we would do in our relationships. So we need to learn how to buy people a drink and take the next step and the next step and so on. This is not a new concept in Canada and in the States too. I was looking up that there's such a thing as the long-term athlete development model in multiple different sports, and it lays out how somebody comes into the sport, how they develop from the fundamental skills all the way to the top of the podium, if that's their desire. But that's only one pathway. You can be a podium curler, you can be a competitive curler, you could be a recreational curler and simply be active for life. This is also not new in the world of business. We use marketing funnels in business all the time. This would be one example of a generic one where we understand that we build awareness. And once we have awareness of a product or service, we have a customer consider that product or service, then we convert them, then there's a loyalty, and there's after that an advocacy. Advocacy means they love the product service so much that they talk about it, they share it with others, and they refer to others. So what if we could have a curling participation funnel? I think we should, and I think it probably looks something like this. I think the first thing that happens, people discover curling for the first time in a number of different ways. They see it on TV, they play it at school, using floor curling, for example. They're at the farmer's market and the club has set up some sort of exhibition. There's a lot of different ways to discover curling. And the next thing that you want people to do is to try it. So when I was managing a club, I used to keep an Excel spreadsheet, and along the bottom, it had these tabs. I'm not sure that I called it this at the time, but it was something very similar. So let's just pretend I called them discover, try, learn, train, play. And when someone would email, message us through social media, call us and say, hey, I just saw curling on TV, I'd put their name, their phone number, their email address into the tab that says, okay, they've discovered it. My only goal from that point on was to get them to try it, not to propose, not to get them to buy a membership, but to say, hey, you need to come out give me 1 hour of your time. I want to show you what curling is. That's it. Once they've tried it, I move them to the next tab in my Excel spreadsheet, and there's probably more sophisticated programs out there that you can use for this, that you can look up. But a spreadsheet worked for me at the time. Is if they tried it once and they had a positive experience, said you need to come take our Learn to Curl program. It's 8 weeks long. We'll teach you all the rules and the etiquettes and the technique and how to be balanced. And how to get your rock to stop between the hog line and the back line, because that's what they want. And that's it. That's the only ask. Once they accomplish that, it's, hey, do you want to join a beginners league or a beginner division? So they're a curler in training, then they're playing in our regular leagues. Then they may or may not opt to be competitive. They could be vying for the club championship or beyond if they choose. And in our funnel too, you become an advocate. You become someone like you folks that are in the room or online. You're giving back to the sport. You're volunteers. You're promoters. You're bringing others to the sport. So this is an exercise that we'll do with clubs. We won't physically do it with you folks today, but I encourage you to do it with your boards or your organizing groups. And you just ask yourselves these questions all along the way. You say, how do people discover curling at our club? And you write it all down on chart paper, on a computer, whatever system you want to use. When we do these engagements with our clubs, we'll use Menti, you might be familiar with. Not sure if that's loading. I don't see it, but so people would input all these ways that people discover curling. So it would be through school, through social media, through television, etc. And I just wanted to feature two that sort of keep coming up and our clubs are saying are really effective for them. The first is the coming back of the personal invitation. So what's old is new again at some point. There's so much information out in the world. There's so much misinformation. You don't know what to trust. And there is this regained effectiveness of a personal invitation that can really cut through all the noise. So using your existing curlers to reach out to their contacts and personally invite them to a tri-curling event or a bonspiel or a social evening. It might not even be curling, maybe just to go have drinks and food at the club so they can see the atmosphere there. Networking your community, reaching out to community partners, reaching out to corporate partners, offering them an experience for a holiday party or a team building event. And in whatever you do, customizing your approach to suit them. And then despite what I just said, there's still a lot of effectiveness of marketing online, of course, especially behind some paid advertising. Facebook still really works, even though there's competing platforms out there. A lot of our demographic is still on Facebook. And the cost per impression on social media is greater than other traditional forms of advertising. You'll see on this next slide, we did a pilot project where we ran a campaign on Facebook, paid for 1 week. We spent $1,000, which is probably high. You likely don't need to spend that much money, but because we wanted to come to groups like this and say it worked, we made sure we spent enough money to make it work. And we invited people to a tri-curling event. Again, we weren't selling memberships. We weren't asking people to join a league. We asked them for 1 hour of their time, and 150 people signed up for this tri-curling event. The number of people that sign up for that stands for Adult Learn to Curl. So it's like a 8-week program, for example, was 32. That was the max that club could take. So it sold out. And based on our figures, we understand that the average number of people that remain a member of a curling club after they've gone through a Learn to Curl program is 60 to 80%, that the average number of years a person remains a member of a club is 7, and that we estimate an average spend rate of $500 per person, which I think is super conservative. We're talking about membership fees, what they pay at the restaurant, the bar, for their bonspiels, for their equipment. It's at least $500. And if you do the math, 70% of 32 participants spending $500 for 7 years is $77,000 over the lifetime value of those customers. And that's because we spent $1,000. So just imagine doing that every season. Imagine doing that before and after Christmas. You can generate a great deal of economic impact in your club and bring a lot of people to the door using this strategy. Just watching the time. Dean, I have 10 more minutes. Is that correct?
That's correct, Bobby. You have 10 more minutes. So, and probably maybe a few questions too.
After the 10 minutes or in there?
Give yourself 8 minutes. How's that?
Okay, we're going to go lightning speed here. So ask your group, how do people try curling at your club? And try curling means try curling. I speak to so many clubs, they're like, yeah, they can try curling every Tuesday night for the next 6 months. That's not trying something. Golf has this great thing, the driving range, where you can go try golf. We have outdoor rinks for hockey. We have basketball courts that are at schools and parks for basketball. But how do people really try curling is a question for all of us to consider. You might run a try curling event. They're very successful. And it's not about teaching people the best technique. It's about thinking about little things like music is on when they come in, that you give them name tags, that they're welcome. When they show up to the door, that you select a team that is based on personality and customer service first, that people have fun, that they feel safe, and that we follow up with them to see what they might do next. You might think about doing a try curling event that has stations. So then you don't have to say that our event's at, Saturday at 1 o'clock for everyone. It could be Saturday afternoon, show up whenever you want, and every 15 minutes the bell rings and you go to the next station. So you come in and you get your name tag and you watch the 2-minute guide to curling, and you get to throw your first rock. I love that. So you go onto the ice and it says first rock station. So many clubs, they ad nauseum teach the rules and the etiquette, and all people want to do is throw a rock. So that's the first thing that they do. And they want to sweep and they want to yell at their friends. So you give them that experience. Okay. Ask yourselves, how do people learn curling at your club? The Learn to Curl program has been such a great thing for the sport. The key to the Learn to Curl program is that it's a professional program. It's not a show up on Sunday, the first Sunday of the year, and try curling for 3 hours and be sore the next day. And now you know everything you need to know about curling. You can't learn curling in an hour or an afternoon. So offering a 6, 8, 10-week program, full season program with the Beginners League has been really well received and successful for a lot of clubs. We use trained instructors. We pay our instructors so that they show up and they are prepared to deliver exceptional experiences. Okay. And after people learn, then they're in this, curler and training stage. We need to give them spaces to do that, to feel comfortable. So we start rookie leagues and beginner leagues, or whatever you want to call it. And we find that we do that for 1 year, then we try to transition them to a different league, and they don't want to go. They want to stay with the people that they've learned to curl with. They want to have their own space. They want to have their own time. So they start developing leagues that are called, under two U2 leagues, then it's U3, then it's U5. That's okay. Just let them continue to grow in that spot. Move your Learn to Curl program to where you have some open ice and recycle the same strategy. Okay. How do people play curling at your club? People have different expectations. Different audiences might want to play just casually, which means they're not committed to a schedule, but they just want to show up. Maybe they want to spare, maybe they want a drop-in league experience. Others want a more committed social experience. Others are keeping score but not competing, and some want to compete. And again, I love this question. Just ask of your group, how do people go curling at your club? You can see on the screen here a bunch of different league formats. On the left-hand side, you see a lot of experimentation here. I think we're doing a good job of offering a diversity of league formats, from singles, doubles, and triples leagues to youth, senior, and family leagues, to pride leagues and stick leagues, men's, women's, mixed, and open leagues. Open sort of being the most popular nowadays. Where I think where we challenge next is that right side of the column is, again, why does curling have to be every week for 6 months? Could it be bi-weekly? Could it be once a month? Does it have to be a full season? Can it be a half season, a third season, a quarter season? And a lot of our clubs are experimenting with these 6-pack leagues where you don't even need to be a member. You just pay a fee to join a 6-week experience. You get 6 games. Maybe it's only 6 ends. Maybe you get 6 drinks or 6 meals. And it's a great gateway into the sport. Okay. So here's a blank customer journey map that I would encourage you to fill out. So you can see at the bottom it says, how do you discover it? Maybe you pick the top 5 ways that are working for your club, and you challenge it every year and say, hey, radio is one of the ways that people are discovering curling, but is there another thing on our list that we should try? And you can substitute it. So you're always optimizing in this pathway. And you should see on your screen now, this is one that I created with my own club in mind. So you can see at the bottom, we use social media television, streaming, referrals, traditional marketing, rocks and rings to get people to discover curling. And our immediate and only next ask is get them to try curling through an event, through renting ice, through a community or corporate event, through electives, through elementary schools, and so on. You keep asking, going up here. So make one of these. It's likely that people are having this kind of journey through your club, but that you don't know it. And if you know it and you understand it, then you can manipulate it and optimize it and have it happen on purpose more often. Okay. And the last one was we're going to talk about winning the experience economy. Okay, we're in this economy again where the emerging generation cares less about material possessions. They want to have experiences. They want to take a picture of it and put it on Instagram and brag about it to their friends. This is all they really want to do. It's probably rare that anyone has one of these in their pocket. Some of us do, but again, the majority of us have gone to something more like this that we're carrying around. Apple changed the game when they decided to get out of the commodity cell phone business, right? Rather than competing on price, they decided to compete on many other economic values that exist. And people will take their sleeping bag, go to the mall, lay in the dirt the night before a new product launch so they can be the first in line to give Apple over $1,000 to purchase a new phone, when, by the way, they could wait a week and order it to their front step, but they want to be the first. So let's go through these really quickly. There are other economic values out there to be considered. The first one is efficacy. You ask the question, how well does this work? A good example might be, how well does your ice work? If you throw a rock to the middle of the 12 foot in the same manner, with the same weight and the same number of rotations, does that rock end up in the same spot? That might tell you how well one of your products is working. We have speed. Okay, the old model of mentoring a new curler on your front end for 10 years before they're even allowed to throw a vice or skip their own team is too long. So we can shorten that individual learning curve by offering more instruction and opportunities for beginners to curl together. Reliability, can I depend on it to do what I want it to do? Okay, if someone joins the curling club and we've made promises to them, like you're going to make new friends, does that happen? And are we conscious about how we do that? Ease of use. Okay, is it easy to register? Is it easy to learn? Is it easy to get customer support? Is it easy to join a league? Is it easy to be a member? Or do I have to be the bartender, bake muffins, pinch pierogies, and sell raffle tickets if I want to curl at your curling club? Okay, the flexibility, how many things does this do for me when I buy a curling membership? We know that it's good social health and physical health, but it's good mental health as well. Do we use it? Can we use it during the day? Can we use it during the evening? Can we use it as an individual and as a team? We use it in the winter, but can we use it in the summer as well? How much flexibility? Status, how does this affect the way that other people perceive me? Aesthetic, how attractive or otherwise aesthetically pleasing is it? Emotion, how does it make me feel? Are your members happier when they leave your club than when they arrive? Because if they are, then you can't put a price on that. And the last one is cost. And you'll notice it doesn't say price, but price is one element of cost. But also, how much do I have to give up to get this? How much money do I have to give up? How much time do I have to give up? How much effort do I have to give up? Are all considerations that people will factor in. So you can see them on the screen there, all of the above. I've created this other screen to sort of curlify it a little bit. So I think you can win the curling or the experience economy in the curling world if we have more and better ice conditions, more and better customer service, if we have more and better programming and a better atmosphere, more flexibility, more instruction, good food and beverage, people will come for that experience. And I want to leave you with one challenge. Okay? So you can either write this down, or I'm sure we'll be able to share slides with you, but I really want you to follow through on this challenge and follow up with me. It's sort of two-part. The first one is, I forbid you to retreat to your boardrooms after this assembly to discuss how you're going to offer curling at the same price that you did last year. The reality is the cost of living is going up, your expenses are increasing, your prospective new customer is not seeking the cheapest product, they're seeking the best experience. So the main challenge here is that I want your board to have a meeting soon that has only one item on the agenda. You're not allowed to have updates from your board members. You're not allowed to go through your financial reports. You're not allowed to do anything boring. You're just going to have this one question to discuss on your agenda. You can see it there. The question is, how do we create a curling experience so exceptional that people will take their sleeping bag to the curling club, lay in the dirt the night before registration opens, so they can be the first to purchase their membership for the 2023-2024 curling season? That's my challenge to you. You can follow up with me at bobbyray.ca. You'll find a link to LinkedIn, to X, my email address. I'd love to discuss the business of curling more with you. And again, I thank you for inviting me to be part of your event today.
Thank you, Bobby. I'm going to have a quick look to see if there's any questions in the chat or if somebody wants to ask. I know there's a couple people online who are, especially I see some DFW people who are hoping to move to dedicated ice. But if there's anybody who has a question, this would be a good time to ask it. Yeah. So Phil asked Bobby, any thoughts on club capacity? And I think that refers to the idea that a lot of times people will say 100 members per sheet sort of thing. And what's your take on that? I think you might share my take on it, but I'll let you talk.
Yeah, I think it's becoming a more difficult question to answer. We used to say 100 people per sheet, but that was under the expectation that we had 100 members that were curling on average twice a week for 6 months, right? So if we think about all the things we were just challenging, and that people sometimes curl now once a week or for only a third of a season, that kind of stuff. I don't know, we might need a new model to consider just how many participants over members kind of thing. Just, yeah, it's getting to be a more difficult question to answer, but we've always previously used 100 members per sheet.
Yeah, I think if you look at flexibility, as you were talking about, though, I think you can get well above 100 members per sheet myself.
Yeah, I think we might have to. I think that the future is more people curling less often because they want to do other things with their time. We're competing. We're going to be one thing they do, but not the only thing they do, like in the past.
One of the things here, Bobby, I think that, and you touched on some of it, but conversion rates, I think, are always something I like to talk to clubs about. When it comes to an intro learn to curl, what sort of time frame do you like for one of those?
Like, how long should a learn to curl program be? Is that the question?
Yeah, your first time out on the ice.
Oh, the first time? I think an hour. I think that, like, intentionally, you're not going to get through everything, and that's what I want. I want to leave someone hanging and wanting more. So that try curling experience is just as much a marketing strategy as is trying to get someone to learn curling. You just want to excite them and have them come back for your learn to curl program, which is more extensive. Maybe it's probably at least 6 weeks, if not 8, or full season if you're incorporating a beginners league into that program.
Thank you. Lots of good stuff there, Bobby. I think Fran from DFW said she took tons of notes there. One club. Last question I'll throw to you is, if you could start a club, like they might be there, but if you could start a club from scratch, what would the evening programming look like?
Yeah, it's really good. I know like the warm side of the glass would look different in the club that I'm envisioning. And I've never been to the States. I'm really excited to visit some of your clubs at some point in my career, but I understand that they do a really good job of having a restaurant or a bar that is more friendly to people maybe just walking off the street and enjoying that side of things. So that'd be part of it. This trimester system that we're using at my local club is really working well. So it's this 3 distinct curling seasons. I would still commit to this. Because there's flexibility in that. Like, so some people are using it for a third of the season, some are using it for a full season, and you can't really tell the difference. You sign up for all 3 leagues or 3 seasons at once. You feel like you're there for a full season, so that's kind of neat.
One question in the chat, maybe we'll wrap it up with this one. It is, what are your thoughts on not making people become members ever if they choose not to?
I think that's probably coming. We probably need to do both to figure out how to cater to both audiences. So, like I was saying, we're doing a strategic plan with the club right now, and we had this question last night. We said there are people that want to be members of clubs, but there are also people that want to be customers of a curling business, to show up, play their game, have their drink, make their friend, have their laugh, and go home at the end of the day. That doesn't make them a bad person. They might be volunteering somewhere else. They might be growing their career. They might have 6 children, who knows? But they want to interact with the club as if they're a customer. And yeah, I think we need to give them that opportunity.
Yeah, I used to say at my club, you know, that as much as I love our volunteer culture, if I joined the tennis club, they didn't ask me to clean the toilets. So I think we have to understand that not people will volunteer at a club in different levels, and we have to be aware of that. Yeah, and true, like sometimes a private event, just an annual event, they don't want to do anything more than bring their company out once a year, and I think that's fine too. So with that,
yeah.
Bobby, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to tell one last story. I always joke that there's a coffee shop near my house in North Bay. I go there every morning and I answer emails. I make a to-do list, do my busy work before the day starts. And I dread the day that the waitress comes by with a piece of paper, slaps it in the middle of the table and says, "We're having an annual meeting. The cost of coffee is going up by 25 cents. We need you to be there to have your vote." Because that'll be the last time I go to the coffee shop, because I want to go there, answer my emails, have a coffee, and go on with my day. So there's just that opportunity in curling too.
I appreciate that, although we just made everybody show up for a vote last night, but
Yeah.
I appreciate it nonetheless. All right, Bobby, thanks for your time. I don't see any other questions in the chat. I know you have a busy day. Appreciate you fitting us in. Thanks.
No problem. Thanks, everyone.